These guys want to start a business, but they don't have any money and they're lacking in the knowledge to do it. So today we're going to step through a 5-point plan that they can use to start their business, and you can use it too. So the 5 things we're going to learn today: getting started. Second is funding. Third is marketing. Number 4, we're going to talk about making the idea real. And then finally, we're going to talk about team. So let's get started. So tell people in 60 seconds what your idea is.
We want to create delicious sweet treats called Sweet Life, and it's going to be protein sweets.
We're going to blend indulgence with enjoyment and create the ultimate sweet treat.
Okay, so when getting started, what I would suggest people do is a mind map. So in the middle, you have your idea, right? So Sweet Life. By the way, have you trademarked this?
No, but we
that's
had
one
some
of our
questions about
questions.
that, yeah.
So straight away, I haven't even started the mind map. We highlight one area we know we've got an action.
Yeah.
We've got an action plan now, right? Number 1, trademark.
Okay.
Because if you don't own this name,
Yeah.
if you don't control that name, you're going to build a business on it and you could get into trouble because
Yeah.
someone else might have it. Trademarking will normally be about £300 per category.
Okay.
And so as a gift, I'll pay for that for both of you
Thank
today,
you so
right?
much.
Just to get things
Thank
going.
you.
But it's an
Thank you.
important thing to have that baseline
Yeah.
done.
Okay.
Now, within a mind map, the thing to quickly write down is what the brand stands for. So you mentioned it earlier: enjoy, indulge, protein.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
A general vibe.
Yeah.
And then we think about where the business is going to go. So you're saying at the moment, let's say it's going to be protein bars. Would that be fair to say?
Protein sweets.
Protein
Yeah.
sweets. Okay, protein sweets. That's the product, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So now, product-wise, you start thinking about, well, where might it be distributed? So let's say supermarkets, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, we might say TikTok shop.
Yeah.
Where else do you think it might be distributed?
We thought like a gym
Yeah.
vending machines.
Gym, brilliant.
Yeah.
Okay, gym. Where else?
We also thought health and fitness events in terms of being like a sponsor.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Fitness events.
Yeah.
Anywhere else?
We had some specific supermarkets in mind.
Okay.
But they're the main category.
By the way, so
Yeah.
supermarket, great. You're now identifying another part of this mind map, which is because brand has to relate to where you distribute.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you don't want to be distributing in a X brand that isn't on. So I'm not going to say one in case I insult someone, but let's say
Yeah.
Asda as an
Yeah.
example.
Yeah.
It might not be right brand alignment
Yes.
for you,
Yeah.
right?
Okay.
So give it a supermarket that you think is in line.
Whole
Whole
Foods.
Foods.
Perfect. I knew you were going to say that. Okay. I also think Selfridges as a launch, for example,
Yes.
right? So
Yeah.
you kind of think Selfridges. By the way, it's much easier brand-wise to start high end and come down.
Yeah.
Than be a low brand product and go up. Then you want to start thinking about, let's say, the marketing. Okay? Which we're going to talk about this later on in much more depth. But in the mind map, it's quite good to think about the marketing side. The simplest 2 methods of marketing are influencer-led marketing. So let's say Simon Squibb launches Help Bank and I'm promoting it because it's my business.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what Steve Jobs used to do is he'd get 3,000 news reporters and tech people in a room and he'd launch the new product. So
Yeah.
he'd have him as a
Yeah.
personality
Yeah.
then present to a niche group of people, tech
Okay.
Yeah.
magazine writers,
Yeah.
and then those 3,000 people would go away and write articles and it become very famous
Yeah.
overnight,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
So, but you've got individual marketing.
Yeah.
Now with individual marketing, you've got the personal brand, which could be, for example, behind the scenes. So you've got the
Yeah.
ability to share, on your personal channels, today we did this, and, Selfishly said no, but we're
Yeah.
not going to give
Yeah.
up.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah,
people
yeah.
like that. So that's
Yeah.
personal
Okay.
brand, and then they know who's behind the product. Within the individual marketing space, you also want to think about how brands like Sony do it. Now, Sony don't have someone who founded the company that you can think of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so when you think of Sony, I don't really think of anybody in particular.
Yeah, same.
So what they do is similar to Nike. So
Okay.
they have, I'm going to write down the Nike strategy, it's probably an easy one to remember.
Okay.
So what Nike do is they go and get the best athletes in the world and then they sponsor them.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they don't have anybody in the organisation that's a personal brand.
Yeah, okay.
They find the best in the market and they sponsor them.
Yeah.
You can also do this. But you basically will then identify, let's say, 10 people that
Yeah.
you think, hey, if they hold our product and really love it,
Yeah.
then that will be brilliant endorsement. I'm going to say Grace Beverley, for example. I don't
really
know.
like her.
So,
Yeah.
people that I can sense, and I'm sure you
Yes.
can make a nice list of people that are just awesome,
Yeah.
wholesome, authentic,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
I see it in your product.
Yes.
So we can make a list on this
Yeah.
mind map. Now, once you have this list, we're going to talk a little bit about sales for a second. Everybody can sell. Everybody.
Yeah.
It's not for the special few.
Yeah.
All you need to sell is the story.
Yeah.
Okay, and I kind of feel like you have it.
Okay.
The one thing in your story I'm going to talk about in a minute is you need to have your why. You know why you're doing this,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So we'll cover that in a minute, but just before we do.
Okay.
So in sales, now we've identified that there's a list of people we want. You have to add them on here as influencers. We now have at number 2 action list. Sell to influencers. We all know what I mean, right? So now we know influencers.
Yeah.
And we have a list to sell to. Of course, supermarkets. When we list here supermarkets we have to sell to, remember there will be things like accelerators that you can get into. So these are programs that these supermarkets run to try and find brands like yours.
Oh,
Okay.
Okay, and then there's trade events, right? So trade events. So now we're going to put on here, you know, what trade events are there
Yeah.
that you can go to, research.
Okay.
So how do we find those?
Or Google, easy.
Okay.
Once you put accelerator in, supermarket, they'll come up.
Okay.
Trade events, food events, supermarkets go to, they'll all come up. But you need to do some research on this, and now we're starting to see the marketing side, the actual distribution side,
Yeah.
the sales side. Cool. So now we have our mind map. You're ready to get started. So now we're going to move to the next bit, which is funding. Now I could do a whole video just on funding.
Okay.
I could spend a day just talking about funding. But I'm going to give you the juice of it.
Okay.
I'm going to teach you the different ways that we can raise funding for your business.
Yeah.
And the best way to raise money. The first thing I'm going to say to you is try not to need money. Now, in your particular idea, there is a product-based element to it. So that means, I need money to make the product.
Yeah.
I'm going to talk you through how to do this without money, but I'm also going to teach you how to get money if you really
Great.
need
Yeah.
it.
Okay.
And we are going to need it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We are going to need it.
Yeah.
But there's many different ways to get it. Here's a quick tip. This is the biggest and most important thing about fundraising I ever learned. If you want to raise money, don't ask for money. Ask for help. If you ask for money, you'll get help.
Okay.
If you ask for help, you'll get money.
Right. Okay.
Okay.
The other good thing about asking for help and not money is not only the psychology of it, but also you can flush out these investors because there are a lot of bad players.
Okay.
So there will be people that want to steal your business.
Yeah.
There are VC firms, that's their whole model.
Okay.
They invest in you, they say,
Yeah.
and then slowly they try to replace you and take over the brand
Yeah.
or take over the business.
Okay.
And then asset strip.
Okay.
Okay. Now that's, of course, I'm being general, there's a lot of really good investors
Yeah.
out there too. And you're going to find out if they're good investors by whether they will help you.
Okay.
Right? If someone says to you, I'm only going to help you meet the people at Tesco's if you give me 20% of your business, you don't want to work with these people.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
You want people that will genuinely help you. Now, most successful, properly, truly rich people will help you anyway.
Okay.
Because yes, it'll be nice to have equity in your business,
Yeah.
but they don't need it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right? They're already successful. It's only the ones
Right.
that aren't successful
Yeah.
that I've seen in my life that really go, right, I'll only help you if you
Yeah.
give me equity now,
Yeah.
a large chunk.
Yeah.
Do not, and this is a big red flag on fundraising,
Okay.
do not give a large chunk of your company away too early.
Okay.
This is probably the number one mistake new founders make.
Okay.
Okay, because you meet someone and they're rich and they say, I'm going to give you some money. You're like, oh, money, yay.
Yeah.
And I know everybody. And they're, all right, but I want 25% of your business.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
Now, instantly that puts you between you on 75%. You're going to dilute. You guys are no longer in charge. You
Yeah.
have a
Yeah.
new boss.
Yeah.
And this person, depending on the terms that you did with them, can stop you raising money in the future.
Right.
They can stop you selling the company.
Right.
And they can stop the whole business growing if they're the wrong person.
Okay.
Before we go to a little bit later in this list, how to get money from angels, which we'll talk about in a minute, I think your production partner. When you raise money, you're going to spend it somewhere. And the way to think about funding, instead of getting money from some idiot
Yeah.
who's just got money and then giving it to the person who's going to do the work, well, why not just give equity to the person who's going to do the work,
Okay.
right? So if there's a production partner, and I have one, by the way, I'm launching a product called Dream Brew.
Okay.
Everything I'm teaching you here, I've done myself.
Yeah.
Amazing.
I have a production partner
Yeah.
who is helping me make sure all the product, we're doing cold coffee, decaf and regular coffee
Yeah.
in supermarkets.
Okay. Love
And so
that.
he is an expert in manufacturing that product,
Okay.
all right?
Yeah.
Now, actually, you can't pay him to work for you. He's too good.
Yeah.
He's too, you know,
Yeah.
he's too knowledgeable.
Yeah.
He will only work on projects if he gets equity.
Right. Okay.
That's true sign
Yeah.
of success,
Okay.
by the way.
Okay.
And actually, the good thing about that is I could raise a load of money easily because of my reputation. I can raise a lot of money,
Yeah.
and then I'm basically going to try and hire him.
Okay.
But I can't because he only
Yeah.
works for equity.
Right, okay.
So what I'm trying to teach you here and those listening is, in your cycle of the things that you need to get done, in your case it's pretty obvious, production of a product.
Yeah.
You want to find either a person who does that well,
Okay.
and they could work in a big company already, or the manufacturer, so the factory. Now, there might be an investment is they make the product for you, right?
Okay.
So a manufacturer. Again, these guys often are on the back of packets.
Yeah.
But what I'm trying to teach you here, just broadly, is the best investor you can get is people that can actually fill the gaps you've got.
Right.
Whatever you'd raise the money to do, you want the money to go direct to the person that's going to do it. Now, the fourth idea when it comes to fundraising, everyone says it, but family and friends. The thing that's good about family and friends is no one will know you better than them.
Yeah.
So the most important rule when you raise money from friends is you tell them they're going to lose all their money. It sounds counterintuitive when you're pitching for
Yeah.
funding. It's like, don't worry, we'll make it work.
Yeah.
It will
Yeah.
be brilliant. I
Okay.
think you say to them, we've got this plan. Simon Squibb's influence is kind of involved. I think it's going to be good.
Yeah.
But any money you give us, just please pretend you've lost it all.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's right, and then
yeah.
it'll be never awkward on
Yes,
Sunday lunch.
Yeah.
But
yeah, okay.
honesty is the key.
Yeah.
And you say to them, look, this is what, if you give us £20,000, this is what we're going to spend it on, and be totally transparent with them. Again, ideally, family and friends that can help you.
Yeah.
And even if it's packing the product,
Yes, yeah.
right? But don't overlook family and friends.
Okay.
People are always nervous to ask family and friends. I don't
Okay.
think so. Again, work-life integration.
Yes,
The key
yeah.
is honesty. Fifth is crowdfunding. Do you know much about this?
Not really.
A little bit, but
Okay,
not a
there's
lot.
lots of different crowdfundings, and I have actually done a whole different video on crowdfunding, but
Okay.
I'll just give you a quick sum up. You've got, basically it falls into three categories.
Mm-hmm.
You've got products like GoFundMe,
Yeah.
which is simply, here's our idea, here's what we're doing, would you like to give us some money to help us make it happen?
Okay.
Okay.
They don't get equity and they don't get anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're just doing it to support two young people with a dream,
Yes.
right?
Okay.
Yeah.
By the way, I think you can do this.
Okay.
I'll put some money in your crowdfunding deal.
Thank you.
Yeah, so option one is what we call kindness.
Okay.
Equity, right? And it can work. The second element is equity crowdfunding. So there's quite a lot of different platforms that do this, but basically you sell a part of your equity to the community. And then the final one is product crowdfunding. It's basically getting community
Okay.
to buy your product. Now they don't need equity,
Yeah.
but they do need to feel valued.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
yeah.
maybe you create a special WhatsApp group. Maybe they
Okay.
get invited to the launch parties.
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe they get to see the new product first before anybody
Yeah.
else.
Yeah.
But these three methods are definitely something to consider for you. I
Okay.
think all three of them have a strength and weakness. There is one more funding thing I want to teach you. Angel investing is a very complicated world.
Okay.
I actually think they shouldn't call it angels. I'm trying to think of a better word. It's often lazy people with money.
Okay.
Okay, and so it doesn't sound as good as angels, does it? I already mentioned the psychology of it. Generally with angels, you want to ask for help because then they feel they can bring value, and they should bring value, and then you let them invest.
Okay.
Right, you let them invest. Important psychology.
Okay. Does
No-
that value? Sorry to interrupt you.
Go
Does
on.
that value include like not just money but contacts and
Of course,
support? And,
of course.
Okay. Yeah.
But that should not be held back, I don't think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
a lot of angels would disagree with me in this,
Okay.
and the TV show Dragon's Den is built on that. I'm going to introduce you to someone at Tesco's,
Yes,
therefore
yeah.
I'm worth 50%.
Right. Okay.
I don't agree with it.
Yeah.
So the way I think an angel should operate is they should say, right, hi, you two, you're cool. I want to help you. Oh, I know the person at Selfridges. I'll just email them now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
You're done, right?
Yes.
Good. You want the sales process to be them pitching to you
Okay.
as much
Okay.
as you're pitching to them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Don't get me wrong. You should still pitch.
Yeah.
Right? You should still be excited about them having involved, but you want them to almost interview for the job.
Okay.
All right? Any questions on funding before I move on to marketing and income?
The one question that I've got with funding / like equity is like how much equity is like too much to give away?
Yeah, okay. Okay, good question. I'll add this on then. Equity. Because this is what the audience will be asking as well. So I
Okay.
like it.
Okay.
Like I mentioned earlier, 25%. No, don't sell 25% to just someone with money.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay? And if you do, make sure they have a dilution clause in there so that later if you raise more money, they dilute.
Okay.
Otherwise, if it's just you diluting and they keep their 25%, it's going to be a real problem. A lot of investors won't invest in the future.
What do you mean by dilute?
So every time money comes in,
Yeah.
a company, when it raises money, everybody who has equity, the number or the percentage of shares that they have reduces.
Okay.
Right? So if you think about it, percentages can be confusing. If you present it as 100 shares, you've sold 25 shares, right, to Bob.
Okay.
Right? No offense to any Bob. Okay. Now, the rest, between the two of you, you have 75 shares, right? Founders. Now, if I sell later another 10 shares, what should happen, and sometimes with the paperwork's wrong, what should happen is this 10 shares could come from both of you.
Okay.
But what actually happens if you get the wrong investor is 10 will come from you. So now you're on 65 and this new shareholder's come in with 10.
Okay.
Right? Another Bob. Right, so you just need to be very careful. So when you ask what's the wrong number, it's more like what's the wrong paperwork structure.
Okay.
Okay, and if you're a novice founder,
Yes.
you won't know this.
Yeah.
This has happened many times.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so you just don't want it that someone comes in, gives some money, does nothing, and then never has dilution. They'll be a bigger shareholder than you by the end of the process.
Okay.
All right, and also it means the dilution is much heavier on you each time. So they've got to be a diluted shareholder. Plus, frankly, you also don't want them blocking a sale, for example,
Yeah.
or blocking an investor.
Okay.
So you need to retain control. Control isn't about the amount of equity you have.
Okay.
Control is literally in the shareholder agreement. So it's not about the amount of equity.
Yeah.
It doesn't equal control.
Okay.
Shareholder agreements equal control.
Right, okay.
Right. So you also got to make sure that there's voting rights, and this person who has 25% doesn't outvote you two.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
So that those sorts of things are what you need to watch out. To bring you the best tools to help you build your business and make your dream a reality, I team up with brands that I believe in to help you. As I've mentioned many times before, more now than ever, it's important to have a unique identity and the ability to showcase your brand to the world. The problem? Many of the great .com domain names are already gone. Try searching your brilliant business dream idea's name and likely it's already taken. You'll either overpay to get it or have to change your name literally in your URL to try and make it work. That's why I love .online. It's the world's second largest new domain name extension, and many don't know about it because it still has a huge amount of great domain names still available. And because online appears over 500 million searches, you're more likely to get rankings on Google. You can purchase a .online domain name from major providers including GoDaddy, Squarespace, Wix and more. However, I've secured for a limited time only the ability for you to buy a domain name for 99 cents using only the link down below and the code Simon. Click the link in the description to claim your domain name today. Marketing is a mind map as well. Okay, so we've got Sweet Life in the middle.
Yeah.
And then we talked a little bit about, distribution, so supermarkets, right, and TikTok. But then marketing can also be, let's call it PR. What magazines do you read?
Vogue.
Vogue, of course you read Vogue. So you might say PR might be getting in vogue.
Okay.
It might be, I read The Sun.
Okay.
So I don't really read The Sun. But it might be like, I think the Daily Mail is one of the biggest portals in the world.
Okay.
Not a fan, but so that's one marketing method, by the way. Get PR, right?
Okay.
So it's obvious distribution like TikTok or supermarkets. And then we might do events. Okay. And we said this earlier, but in events, there's kind of quite a few categories. You've got your own events. So you might do a launch party,
Yeah.
right? And then you might go to other people's events and sponsor them.
Yes.
So you can, this is my map, by the way, if you can do this in your own time, but you might list all the people you quite like to sponsor. So I was just at a Nike event.
Okay.
Organised by a friend of mine. Well, I say a friend of mine, she's a dreamer as well. She started her business. It's called Rocks Queens.
Okay.
She just did a partnership with Nike.
Okay.
And so she sponsoring her events, supporting her events. I introduced you to her, by the way.
Amazing.
She is amazing. But she got Nike to sponsor her launch party event.
Okay. Yeah.
But then you could give product at her future events.
Right. Okay.
So you can combine. So she's already done the work. She's already going to do the event.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she'd probably support you because she's also a young female founder trying to make it happen,
Yeah.
right?
Okay.
But events that are sponsored that you can sponsor, but also events that you can get sponsored.
Okay.
Okay. Now this is where I see revenue. You could, I'm going to make a little list of revenue because marketing today is not like it used to be.
Okay.
Marketing used to be a cost center, right? Marketing would cost you money.
Okay.
Now, the smart people like me that know marketing so well, marketing is an income stream.
Okay.
I promoted my book, got hundreds of thousands of copies sold.
Yeah.
I got paid by TikTok for the videos I made to promote my own book.
Okay.
Right, so it didn't cost me money.
Yeah.
It made me money to promote my own book. If we do this right, you can make money before you've even sold one product.
Right, okay.
And that's what can underpin you as a business.
Okay.
So your marketing is going to make money.
Yeah.
You have to believe this is possible.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't get it.
Yeah.
It's like this is another hack that no one's really realised.
Yeah.
So your marketing doesn't have to be a cost centre, and it can be an income stream before your products even hit the shelves.
So would this support like a pre-order model type building
Yes
the hype?
and no.
Okay.
Yes, it can. So, like, I take my book. I do a video saying this. I did one video. It was £10,000 on my book.
Okay.
That video made a lot of money.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then people saw the video and went and bought my book.
Right, okay.
So the same model. You guys could do a video. We're gonna make the most amazing sweets in the world.
Yeah.
And then you do a video going into sweet shops and stuffing them in your mouth. And you're like, oh, these are all disgusting, and you spit them out. That
Yeah.
gets 50 million views.
Right,
Yeah.
okay.
And that can be 10 grand.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now you've marketed your products coming.
Yeah.
And you made 10 grand.
Okay.
Now I don't want to, when people are listening to this, and you guys included, I don't want to make this sound easy, because I think that this, like anything else, is a combination of pressure, persistence,
Yeah.
execution and innovation,
Yeah.
and luck. But you will only get lucky if you try.
Yes, yeah.
So if you made a video every day from today until 6 months from now,
Yeah.
if one of them goes viral, you can make more money than you have done in your salary in the last 6
Yeah.
months.
Right, okay.
Right, and give yourself
Yeah.
more runway.
Yeah.
Let's call it social media income. And here's the exciting news. You don't need a following to get social media income.
Okay.
Now on TikTok, technically, I think you need 10,000 followers
Okay.
to get on the income program.
Right, okay.
YouTube, you need 1,000 subscribers.
Okay.
So you do actually, I'll take it back, you do actually need a bit of a following, but you
Okay.
can work with someone else.
Okay.
So I can do a video about you,
Okay.
and that video can make money, and I can share it with you,
Amazing.
Yeah.
for example,
Yeah.
right?
Okay.
But so there is one method where you have no following, but what I was trying to say really is you can put a video up today and it can get 100 million views, and you don't need any following to do that. I mentioned it already a little bit, but just to make it clear, partners. You can get brand partners, let's say Nike. By the way, people always think these big brands are not easy to get.
Right.
They're easier than you think.
Okay.
Okay.
These brands need you.
Okay.
They are losing relevance.
Okay.
Yeah.
They need you more than you realise.
Which person in like a big organisation would you go to?
Yeah,
So
like what
there's two ways to
role?
find out. One is you just go direct on LinkedIn and look for the marketing manager.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you see the marketing manager, maybe you see that marketing manager knows someone you know.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure they know me. But you'll see a
Yeah.
connection
Yes.
who they're
Yeah.
connected to.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you can just see it online. You'll see these events promoting to you all the time.
Yes. Yeah.
Just go look at the organisers
Yeah.
and go to them and say, hey,
Yeah.
we're two founders trying to start a business. I noticed that you got Nike as a sponsor.
Yeah.
How did you do that?
Yeah.
And who are they?
Yeah.
Amazing.
Teachers. you
Yeah,
know?
yeah, yeah.
And they might reply, they might not. If they're a
Yeah.
small business, they probably will
Yeah.
teach you,
Okay.
right? But there's the Nike type partnership, but there's also, of course, we talked about this earlier, but there's also like, let's call it influencers that aren't making lots of money but have lots of followers. So let's not talk about Grace Beverley or
Yeah.
Jamie Oliver, because they've got successful businesses.
Yes. Yeah.
They can be partners.
Yeah.
But I think the easier, low-hanging fruit
Okay.
is often people that are doing quite well on social media, but they don't have
Yeah.
a product,
Right. Okay.
right? So a lot of
Yeah.
those guys, you can do something called affiliates.
Yes.
Yeah.
So affiliate, you really need the product to do affiliate,
Right.
okay? But they could also be your event partners in the meantime.
Okay.
And you could even do crowdfunding with them and give them equity if they support.
Okay.
And they could become your ambassadors.
Yeah.
Okay.
And these
yeah.
are a lot of micro-influencers.
Okay.
A lot of these guys have big followings, they can't monetize.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you can be their partner to monetize.
Okay.
This is the single biggest thing that's going to separate all future businesses from past businesses, and it's community.
Okay.
Okay.
As soon as you can, you want to start building a community. Now it can start with you two
Yeah.
that care about this problem.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I'm sure you know 5 friends or 5 people
Yeah.
that also care about this problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Marketing is an income stream. This is the important lesson I want you to take away from this.
Okay.
It is not a cost center.
Okay.
It takes time to set up. Of course, social media numbers take time to build up.
Yeah.
But today, this is your secret weapon, because
Okay.
social media you can do better probably than big companies.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
you can beat them by doing this. So now we're going to talk about making the idea real. I'm actually going to combine it with team,
Okay.
Okay.
because making the idea real and the team have a strong connection, and everything I've just gone through with you, I'm now going to connect all the dots.
Right.
So for team, there is today and then there's a year from now.
Yeah.
Okay?
Okay.
I think as I described earlier already, today is, let's say you're in charge of marketing, you're in charge of finance, you're both going to help each other, but you have this responsibility. So the gap in the team is manufacturing.
Okay.
All right. The difficulty is going to be when you first hear this idea, you need to run a sales system. So I'm going to take team. Let's say marketing we already talked about, and then we talked about finances, and then we're going to talk about manufacturing. So that's really for this type of business, the basic structure of the team you need.
Yeah.
So marketing is you, finance is you, and manufacturing, option 1 is an investor. Okay. Option 2 is a partner, and by the way, partners can also do a percentage of profit. Basically, what you say to the manufacturer is, we're going to go do crowdfunding, and we're going to pre-sell a certain amount.
Right. Okay.
And then once we've sold, let's say 1 million units, we'll have the cash to pay you.
Oh, okay.
When you say we'll pre-sell,
Yeah.
do you mean that we'll make our sales then pay you?
Yes.
Yeah.
What if you didn't get the amount of money that you needed or that they would need?
So you get the price from them to make it.
Right.
Let's say, for argument's sake, they say it's a pound to make the product.
Yeah.
And then you have a pound of costs and you have a pound of profit. So you need to sell the product, for argument's sake, for £3.50.
Yeah.
Right? And then I mentioned earlier crowdfunding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's many different ways to do it. But let's say you do product crowdfunding and you sell 1 million units at that price. Then you have the money to pay them to make it. And this, by the way, for manufacturers now, this is they're fully aware of this model.
Yeah.
So you tell them you're going to do this, and then they can give you samples.
Okay.
Yeah.
They can give you, argument's sake, they might invest in you and say, here's 1,000 samples. If you're going to use us to make this product after this pre-order and in the future, we'll give you 1,000 samples to get things going.
How does sampling work in the sense of everything that I've heard from founders and business owners? They always reference rounds and rounds of sampling.
Yep.
What's the criteria?
Well, I mean, you need to write down what you want the product to be.
Right, and then it needs
So
to
do
be
you just
that.
basically go round and round with sampling and receiving different samples
So
until you find the one that
you're a graphic
fits
designer,
you?
right?
Yeah.
So you've done logos.
Yeah.
It's exactly the same.
Yeah, it is.
So sometimes you'll nail it first
Yeah.
time. You'll be like, someone tells you to do a logo, you'll do it, and the client will go, oh, perfect.
Yeah.
Other times don't like it, do it again. Almost right, don't like it, do it again.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you're going to have a bit of there's no guaranteed process.
Okay. Yeah.
But I would say if they haven't got it 10 samples in, you've probably got the wrong partner.
Okay.
Price will also determine this.
Yeah.
And you need to do your research.
Yeah.
Right? Who is good, who is not? What's going to happen is the people that you research that are really good are not going to want to deal with small players.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're going to be big companies that know what they're doing. You have to act big. Fake it till you make it.
Yes,
And people don't like me saying this, but I don't mind fake it till you make it.
Yeah, same.
As long as you follow through.
Right.
Okay.
Don't lie to people.
Yeah.
Yeah, you've got
So,
to deliver.
you'll have to give everyone a refund
Yes,
if you
yeah.
can't deliver.
Yeah,
But you
okay.
have to believe you're going to sell 1 million units
Right.
Yeah.
because when
Yeah.
you talk to this company, you have to say you're going to sell 1 million units.
Yeah.
Okay.
Then they'll give you the samples, which means then you can do the marketing, which then means you will sell 1 million units.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, if you don't sell 1 million units, then this company took a little risk on you. If they're big
Yeah.
enough, it won't even hurt them. It won't
Yes.
even matter
Yeah.
to them, right?
Yeah.
So you just need to be a little bit bold and believe
Okay.
in your vision.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's how you get the manufacturing.
Okay.
It's chicken and
Yeah.
egg because actually all of this links. Now the team will matter. Marketing, you're a novice.
Yeah.
And you don't have large social media following.
Right.
So you don't have social proof to say you could sell 1 million units.
Okay.
So when your marketing strategy, you need to explain, we're going to get Grace Beverley on board. By the way, Grace, if you're listening to this,
I
feel free
love
to say
you.
your name.
I watch your
love
things
you.
all the time.
Jamie Oliver could come on board.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Simon Squibb might come on board. He's hard to get hold of. But you kind of you kind of want to show how you're going to get numbers
Yeah.
when
Yeah.
you're not personally a big social
Right,
media
okay.
influencer just yet. Now, how much would it cost? Honestly, this is what kind of drives me crazy about people starting businesses. People think they need £1 billion before they start.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't. You need $1 million plan
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
before you
Yeah.
start.
Yeah.
You actually don't need $1 million. Now, what's
Okay.
going to happen, and this is what's going to be tough for you, and this is where this team thing plays out a little bit more. There's a huge sales role in the beginning of any business. This is the biggest thing I wish they'd teach at school.
Right.
Because if people understood sales and everybody can sell,
Yeah.
then every single part of what I've told you here works.
Okay.
Okay.
If you don't know how to sell and you think it's hard,
Yeah.
then this becomes quite hard and you just need to raise money and then you have a
Right.
boss.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
So selling is just mindset. All selling is storytelling.
Okay.
Okay? It's just storytelling. It's not faking, it's not car salesman selling you something you don't want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sales is literally like, there's a problem with sweets out there. There's not enough protein in
Right.
sweets. We need to change that. We're not going to stop until this works.
Right.
And you need to sell to your future team.
Yeah.
You need to sell to your manufacturer. You need to sell to the partners that you
Okay.
want to have come on board, like Beverly and Jamie
Yeah.
and so on.
Okay.
And so you need to learn to do this. And all you need to do, you guys already do it a little bit. Your
Okay.
sales pitch, I would just make it a little less like an act.
Okay.
You know?
Yeah.
I would almost like, I'd let one of you take the lead on it.
Okay.
And then you jump in with some passionate point.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
you know, you might be like, and we want to make these sweets really good. And you'll be like, oh, we got Simon Squibb on board. And you know, we've gone viral
Yeah.
online,
Yeah.
have you seen?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So make it a little bit more natural.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the sales process is basically numbers. If you research, you'll find 100 manufacturers that can make your product.
Right.
And then you need to have a rigorous system. We use Pipedrive, I think. We use Pipedrive for this, but you need a rigorous software system and or product to allow you to rigorously follow up with these people.
Okay.
Because if you send me an email today, even you two, I know you,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I like you and I'm
Yeah.
helping you.
Yeah.
If you send me an email tomorrow,
Yeah.
I probably won't reply.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you send me an email a week later and say, Simon, you didn't reply,
Yeah.
I might not still reply.
Yeah.
Nothing
Yeah.
personal.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then the
Yeah.
following week, you send me one, you're like, oh, sorry guys, I missed the last two
Yeah,
emails.
yeah.
Your email came in, I was getting on a plane, and your other email came in, I did press reply and forgot to press send.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, like you just have to remember, no is not a no in business
Yeah.
until
Yeah.
you've seen it in black and white. And
Yeah.
even when they say no, you can go back and say why.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
you just have to like rigorously push through.
Okay.
Okay.
Right,
Yeah.
not stop until you've got
Yes.
that
Yeah.
yes. And even
Yeah.
if they say no, okay, we'll come back to you in a month.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
Okay.
like, and that's all sales is.
Yeah.
Rigorous, careful follow-up. Pipedrive is our partner. I can get you access to this software.
Amazing.
Great, thank
Thank
you.
you.
Yeah. So just remember, team is never ending. You want to be looking out for people that can replace you. This
Yeah.
is the long-term plan.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you might think you're the best at marketing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You
There's
want
always
someone
someone
better than
better.
you.
Yeah.
So when you start a business, you will always be a generalist. Any founder is a generalist. You're going to be the
Okay.
salesperson.
Yes.
You're going to be the
Yeah.
finance person. You'll probably be involved in manufacturing. You're going to be marketing. You're going to be recruiting.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then as you develop your business, you go from generalists to specialists.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you start to see where you naturally fit in the order of your company.
Right,
I
okay.
naturally fit within the order of my company in marketing.
Okay.
Okay. I'm the CEO at the beginning,
Yeah.
and then I bring a CEO in.
Okay. Yeah.
Make sense?
Yeah.
Yes, that makes sense.
All right.
Yeah.
So that's it. I think you guys are ready to go.
Amazing.
And so I have one last question for you.
Yeah.
How much money do you need to make the business go?
Nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Yeah.
If I'm wrong, come back to me in a month.
Okay.
But I'm not.
Okay.
You can if you persist. All right.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll have some chicken now. Bye.